What's going on, mi gente? It's David Favela here from the Latino Startup. Wanted to share with you for a moment my inspiration for starting this project. I've always been intrigued by economic development. When I reflect on my father's situation, he grew up in Durango, Mexico, in the mountains, in La Sierra, in a log cabin, literally with no power or inside plumbing. And he came here to the United States and made a life for himself and raised 7 children, all of which went to college and achieved advanced degrees. And we really made the American dream come true. But what I realized with his own story was that he was really an economic refugee. In other words, the economics of raising a family of 7 in Durango based off of just farming corn, beans, and squash and other crops just didn't work. So that's what forced his immigration here to the United States. And so when I researched his background, I realized that all of our lives are so dictated by the economic conditions that we are forced to survive under. And I think people can understand that quite simply, wherever you are, whatever your educational background kind of dictates what your income potential is. And so I've always been intrigued by, well, how do we change that? How do we take control of our economic destiny? And outside of education, that opens up new doors for people from lower income brackets. The other alternative was starting a business. And so I always saw new business startup as an alternative means of creating generational wealth. And in my work when I was at Hewlett-Packard, I was involved with a lot of new business startups, but obviously in a corporate environment, it's very different. It wasn't really until the last 10 years, I think, that there's been more work done. And I want to say it's relatively new work done, because the work that's been done has been in Silicon Valley and in kind of the elite MBA schools. And what I mean by that is the old paradigm used to be, there was kind of like 2 schools of thought. You either go out there and just start your business, and as they say in Spanish, la escuela de los trancazos. You learn from the streets and you work to refine and build your business. And then there was the other side that I kind of tended to do a lot, which is you spend a huge amount of time building a business model or a business plan without really a solid foundation. And it wasn't until I read Eric Ries and the Lean Startup and Stephen Blank with the customer discovery and Blue Ocean strategy and all of these different leading business books that I realized that there are these tools, there are these ways of thinking that can actually increase the odds of your success. And those were ideas that I got 10 years ago. And in the last 3 years, as I've worked with more and more startups and consulted with them at a detailed level, I realized that even amongst these elite startups that I work with in biotech and life sciences and technology, these concepts are still relatively new. When I did my volunteer sessions here in Barrio Logan, first come, first serve, come in and learn about, starting your own business, I realized that nobody really had heard of any of these concepts. So for many of you out there, especially in my LinkedIn familia, you'll say, David, a lot of this is out there. The books have been published. The knowledge is being shared. Does there need to be another social media or YouTube page dedicated to spreading these ideas? And yeah, I think there does. I think very few people understand these ideas, and even fewer actually put them to use. And I have a sincere belief that if they did, then the likelihood of their success and their growth would increase exponentially. There's a saying that 95% of startups fail within the first 2 to 3 years. And yes, there's always different reasons as to why a startup fails. But based on my experience and all the discussions and consulting I've done, I think a lot of startups fail because they fail to build a solid foundation. And I think that's really what I want to evangelize on, is helping people spend more time and really understand the startup process and what it's really about. And there are 3 critical steps that I think I really want to dedicate my channel to and use examples and talk to people and really drive the point home. Is the first step is changing your mindset. A business isn't just a means to an end. It's not a way to just make millions of dollars for yourself. At its core is you are solving a problem for someone who's willing to pay you to solve that problem for them. And that, for some people, they may say that's not that revolutionary, but it is. It's subtle, it's simple. When I say it, it sounds like, yeah, of course. But very few people do that. And what I mean by finding a customer and finding a problem is that they don't spend any time doing the second thing. And I'll be putting out a video about this as well. They don't spend time thinking and executing what's called a customer discovery process. A customer discovery process is where you take you find these customers, these people, and they shouldn't be family and friends, because family and friends, I love them, but they'll tell you anything, just to be positive and supportive. You have to go to strangers, and it sounds weird and awkward, but I think once you do the first 5 or 10, you find that it's actually quite easy, and that people enjoy being heard. When someone asks them questions about a problem that they have, they like to talk about it. They like to be heard. They like to see someone who's fully engaged in wanting to understand their problem. So step number 2, once you've identified a problem, step number 2 says do customer discovery. Customer discovery is just sitting down with potential customers, whether they're retail customers or whether they're business customers, and not pitching them your idea. It's about having a genuine conversation with them about their problem. So that's the second thing. And it's simple. Yeah, of course, duh. But there's a lot to that. And as much as I consult with people and coach them on how to do it, I find that, and it's inevitable, we're so passionate as entrepreneurs, is they end up being pitch sessions where you pitch them on your idea. And that's not customer discovery at all. So that's the second thing. The third thing, and I think this is almost an art as much as it is a science, but building what's called an MVP, a minimum viable product. It's such an interesting idea. And, I think actually this would resonate within the Latino community, but it's basically trying to put together your concept at its most basic level. Won't have all the bells and whistles. And in fact, sometimes it won't actually even be a product. It might be the description of a product. I'm always fascinated, for example, with the Dropbox example. They had this idea about how to transfer large files from user to user over the internet when it wasn't possible back then. And rather than spending millions of dollars to actually build code, they actually created a video that explained how it was done and the user experience, so that it wasn't just a slide deck or just some explanation. It was really a well thought out video. They posted that and they got 75,000 people willing to subscribe and were interested in the product once it was released. With that MVP information, that allowed them to raise the initial capital required to get them going to their first actual product. So this is what I mean about the MVP being as much of an art as it is a science, is that sometimes you can create and collect valuable feedback with something that is a fraction of the expense and time required to do it. If I wanted to open a restaurant that served some incredible dish that no one's ever had, do I go and sign a lease and hire staff and build out this whole restaurant? Or do I do a pop-up somewhere? Or do I serve at a family or friends event so that I can start collecting feedback on what they think, how much they like the product? So I really think that those three concepts, a problem-solving mindset, a robust customer discovery process where you're actually getting customer feedback and using it in your design process and in developing your solution. And number three, coming up with an MVP that you can actually start testing with those potential customers and getting valuable feedback. I think those things are really unique, and I don't think we execute them well within our own community. And that's what I am excited about. That's what I want to bring to the Latino Startup. I want you to think in new ways, and by thinking in new ways, increase the odds of your success. So if you like some of this content, if you like where I'm going with all of this, if you want to support what we're doing, please like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. That's where I'm trying to build an audience, and I'm trying to create some critical mass so that we can build a community of thought around how to help ourselves and our community succeed. Muchas gracias.